I would say the accomplishment that I'm most proud of is helping a CEO that's actually a former boss and friend of mine take their company from public to private. And there were three things that were basically affecting them that were really difficult hurdles to overcome. The first was that 18 months prior to them selling to the private equity firm, they had been offered 2 to 3 times what they were being offered by the public equity firm now because the markets were so different because of the economy. The second was that they had to attain a 2/3 majority shareholder vote to get this transaction approved. And I think the third that made it the most difficult and made it very different than a lot of other transactions was the fact that one of their board members was very publicly opposed to this, going to the extent to put reporters on the emails when he was dissenting with the rest of the board. So we had to deal with those issues and his work to try and sway people not to approve the deal. Fortunately, we were blessed to be able to convince the shareholders that this was the right move, and the deal ended up going through. So it was very successful in the end, but it was a very difficult challenge to overcome. The thing that I'm most proud of in my career is working with the American Battle Monument Commission and getting the World War II Memorial approved through the National Capital Planning Association to be built on the mall in Washington, D.C. I have family that were Navy in World War II. In fact, one had a ship named after him. And so the fact that I was able to kind of honor their memory of a couple different family members that were in World War II made that especially appealing and something that I was very proud of. Looking at things from an issue crisis perspective, I would say that social media and the number of channels that you have to deal with, when you have to now suddenly deal with Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all of the other things that we've seen companies like Domino's and others have to deal with, or even the iPhone lately as they've had to deal with the antenna issues and the YouTube videos that show up and everything else, or even BP. The number of voices that are out there that you have to combat if you're that company dealing with a crisis has grown exponentially. And so how do you reach those people? How do you communicate with all of these various stakeholders that are so diverse and really global? Because as you look at the crises that occur, even with Sony, with the exploding batteries that were catching on fire a couple years ago, that became an instant international issue in pretty much 24 hours. It started in another part of the world and away we went, and that became front page news within 48 hours. So that kind of news generation from citizen journalists and just regular everyday people hasn't existed before. The thing that is most important to me as I'm looking at new hires or junior staff is the first thing I tell them is to demonstrate integrity. If you're going to come in and demonstrate integrity and you know that you're going to be truthful, if you know that you're going to be filling out your timesheets appropriately because they're legal documents, if you know that you're going to work hard and that you're always going to be truthful with people, that goes a long way in today's society, especially in the job market. I think I would tell them a number of things as well, such as make sure that you actually understand business, because in the PR industry that's incredibly important. It's not just about generating clips and media coverage. It's about truly understanding their business, understanding the finance that goes on behind the scenes that many times you don't see. It means that you need to understand the history of the industry and history in general, because most of the time history repeats itself. And so many of the things that we see from a PR perspective or even in the news, even when you look at the BP spill, those types of things have happened before, that there are learnings you can pull from. And therefore, if you have an understanding of basic history, if you have an understanding of finance, if you have an understanding of politics and how that affects PR, because it truly is pure PR when you get to the base of politics, I think that you'll become a much more successful public relations person than you will if you're just focused on generating clips or just staying in that social media area.